Hello everyone. Welcome back to Mac Workshops. Hope you had a great semester holiday. Welcome to today's event, Figma Prototyping with Alice. Before we start today's event, I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are gathered to today. My name is Sai. I'm the current events director at Monash, Association of Coding, and thank you so much for coming today. Before we begin, I'll just briefly go over what our club does. We focus on imparting technical skills and industry-relevant experiences to students to foster a good tech culture at Monash and provide a collaborative setting for students to learn from one another to build up the skills they need for a career in tech. We'll put in links in the chat. Don't forget to check us out on social media. I'll be passing on to Alice now. Take it away, Alice.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Sai, for the intro. So welcome everyone to the first event of the semester, Intro to Figma Prototyping, and that will be presented by me. Okay, let's kick it off. Before I get into it, I just want to introduce a bit about myself and why I'm talking to you all today. I am the current design director of Mac, in charge of everything design from all our social media, graphics to our website. By the way, check us out on Instagram if you haven't already. I'm studying software eng and graphic design, and I began teaching myself UX and UI design around about 1 year ago. Been playing around with Figma for around about that time as well, and now I'm here to teach all of you kind of the basic few tips and tricks I've learned along the way. And I currently work in product design, doing like UX and UI design for websites and apps. So far, two Melbourne startups. And before I get into it, if you possibly can and have the capacity to, I'm sure your tutors and lecturers will tell you this, but please, if you can, turn on your video so that I know I'm talking to real people here. Only if you have the capacity to. Totally understandable if you don't. And before we start, just making sure that everyone has signed up for a Figma account. If you haven't done so, go do that now. And also, after you've done that, have your Figma opened. You can use the app or the browser. It doesn't matter which, both will work perfectly fine. Lovely to see some human faces. Thank you. All right, so, oops. Oh, sorry. Don't know why this is not on to the next page. So today's workshop, what are we going to be building? A simple to-do list page image here. And it's a really interactive workshop. So it's mainly going to be on Figma, even the Q&A, which I'll go through a bit after this. You'll be doing like everything on Figma. And by the end of the workshop, there's also a space for you to share your design and see what other people have been making. What will we be covering? Obviously, there's a lot to Figma, but to kind of condense it down to what I'm talking about today, we'll be covering the basic Figma tools and what they mean, Figma's quick hacks, like the basic commands, and some shortcuts that I'll be telling you that you might not already know about, Figma components, a basic overview of Figma components, and Figma's order layout function. And what we won't be covering though is design and UX theory that was covered in the previous UX workshop. Also around by me at the start of the year. You can check it out on YouTube if you're interested. We will not be designing an entire app. Just to clarify, in case this was not clear, this is just a prototype. It's not a fully functioning, like real app. Aim is to like demonstrate what a design would look like going into production just before gets implemented into code. So let's get fig jamming. I'll get Sai to send through the link to our Q&A board.
Yep, I sent it through.
Yep, that's the last link down there. If everyone could open that up. And yeah, what you'll see is this fig jam board. This is called a fig jam. It's part of Figma, but if you don't already know, it's kind of like the brainstorming, a space for brainstorming before you go into the actual Figma prototype. So I'm praying that this works because this is like my first time using this as well for polling. Yeah. So to let me know a bit more about you and why you're here today, I'm gonna start off the first. I'm sorry, this might be real. Okay, I'm gonna start off the first poll to get you guys to select what degree you're studying. What are you studying? Hopefully this doesn't crash or anything. Okay, so if you could go on this board over here, if you see that, and upvote your degree or degrees. Because I just realized that with the single polling option, you can only select like one thing. Okay, leave that up for a while. And second question is, what's your comfort level with using Figma? So get everyone to vote for their preferred option as well. Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Very nice to see that a lot of people who haven't touched Figma before, because if you're like pretty familiar with the tools already, this workshop might not be for you. And also the link here, which I've put, is if you click on it, it goes to the link to the finished prototype, which you can view later if you are unable to finish it or you have some stuff you want to access in the slides. Yep, thanks for sending links again. Cool. I'll just go through how the Q&A is going to work. So this is the delegated space for everyone to drop your questions if you have any. There are 3 ways you can ask questions actually. First of all, first one is you can just unmute your mic and ask away if possible. Definitely want this to be as interactive as possible. So feel free to interrupt me if I'm going through something too fast or too slow, or you're lost in the process. So you can do so by grabbing a sticky note from the toolbar here and just like, dropping it here, pick the color if you want, and type in your question. Okay, and the events team will be monitoring this as well while we're going through it. So, and last of all, after this workshop, this is a delegated space for you to post your final design to share with everyone else and see what other people are coming up with. Got a question here. Will we have access to the recording to review over the content again? Yeah, definitely. 100% for all our events that are not like sponsored or have some sort of restriction with recording, we upload them on our YouTube afterwards. Okay, so yeah, thanks. So let's get into the actual prototyping. So how you can, let's go back to the slides. So sorry. So to start off with, how we're gonna be building our to-do list. First thing we're gonna do is obviously create a new project. And how we do that in the Figma interface is you should be on your home page in Figma, and new design file is the go-to to create a new project, which we'll be doing here. If you wanna name your new project, you can name it like to do this or something like that. Hopefully no troubles there. I'll just briefly go through the Figma interface, since we seem to have a lot of new people who haven't touched Figma before. So the top bar is the gray area, and that is basically your go-to place for creating anything that you want appearing on your canvas, which is this gray part. If you want text, the button here is T. If you hover over the pen tool, it's got drawing tools and then shapes, frames, and the cursor, which is also your move tool. On the left side is for people who do coding, it's where your DOM tree will be. And for those people who don't do coding, it'll be a list of all your elements on the page. Because we don't have anything on the page at the moment, there's nothing there. On the right side of your Figma, there's your design panel, which will be using quite a bit to style things, and the prototyping panel, which you can use to kind of make your design more interactive at the end. The Figma interface is actually kind of nice. It's much more nicer looking than some of the Adobe suite software that are pretty ugly, to be honest. So yeah, hopefully with practice, everything becomes pretty intuitive. So we've created our new project. What's gonna be next? We're gonna create a frame to frame our to-do list. And how you can do that is we can go down here on the phone and you can pick whichever you want. Doesn't really matter. It's all going to be just mobile interface anyway. So I picked the Pro Max one. I just click on the thing and it'll appear on your canvas. That's your first item on the canvas. Hopefully everyone has been able to do that. Moving forward, next thing we're going to do is add a heading. So adding a heading is very easy. The text tool is right here, represented by T for text, and you just tap on the canvas and you can write a title for your to-do list or a fun little caption like "Good afternoon, Alice." But obviously that looks too small at the moment. So what you want to do is go to the right sidebar to change your, first of all, if you have a favorite font that you like and you can't live without, you can change it to whichever one is your favorite. For me, I'm going to change to Poppins. It's the Mac brand font. And I love that for various reasons. So definitely choose a font that you like. Don't copy me. Be original. I'm sure all of you have your own creative preferences. So, and what you want to do is make that either bold or extra bold. And for the fill color, I generally like to go with something that's near black, but not quite black, maybe a dark blue. Just because black on white, black on straight white, it's really hard on the eyes and can cause a bit of eye strain scientifically if you're looking at that for a long time. So I'm gonna change my size to about 26 so that looks like a heading. There, bam, you've just created your first piece of text. Okay, so after that, I want to go through, before we get into anything else, I want to go through a little bit of design theory for like 2 minutes. That is the atomic design methodology. Atomic design is a methodology composed of distinct stages working together to create interface design systems in a more deliberate and hierarchical manner. And what that kind of looks like is the atomic design methodology is like a system for designing so that when you're designing a whole interface, the things on your screen are like scalable, simple, and you can build upon them easily without having to mess around on your screen for too much. So you start off with atoms, and then when you combine two atoms, they turn into molecules, and then combine lots of those, and so on. You get to pages. What that kind of looks like in UI design is this. Basically, whenever you see a UI screen, like I don't know whatever website or literally any website or app or interface, you'll see like little buttons which all have their own unique components, like little text, and you combine all these components to make a group of something and then combine all those to make a like lists, and all those turn into pages in the end. What does this mean? So that when you're actually go on Figma designing all the little components your ice screen is made of, you're not copying pasting the same elements, you're not remaking the same circle, square, rectangle, or whatever shape you're making every time. You're not changing all the instances of the same element manually. What we're going to use is components and design systems to ensure our design system is like scalable and replicable. What that ultimately looks like in my to-do list example is, so you have your like radio buttons, which are represented by little circles here, and then you have your main button to add a new task, your to-do list item, and then you combine those to make your one to-do list item, and then all those turn into a list, and all that, combining all that turns into a page. So with that in mind, we're gonna make our first Figma component. Sorry. And by the way, there's no correct or wrong approach to do this. You give a complete freedom of like what shapes and colors you want, styles you want to produce. This is my framework, generally my framework of how to create a component. So what you want to do first is make your like radio button for check the checker thing in a to-do list, and you want to, okay, let me demonstrate that again. If you go on the square tool at the top, it'll come up as a drop down where you can then select the ellipse, and how you do that is you point your cursor and drag to keep it as a circle. You hold the shift key on your computer, so you click and drag while holding the shift key. That's how you keep the proportions in a shape, and yeah, that's how you make a circle a circle. On the right sidebar is where you can change the size. So if you have, this should already be locked for you, but if it's not for you, you can lock it by clicking on this, and this is basically saying constrict these proportions so that the circle doesn't change shape. And I would go with for about 16 to make this first circle for a to-do list. I pick a color that's, I first of all put a stroke on here. You just tap the stroke, the plus next to the stroke, and to pick a color, I would probably pick one that's dark blue, something like that. And I would change this is the weight symbol for weight, and I would probably go with like 2, be safe. And I would also just want to remove the fill inside the shape, which is the gray part, by clicking on the minus, and that empties the circle in the center, which is what we have right here. And I would also change the opacity to make it look lighter. And that number can be adjusted here by, and I'm gonna go with a 30. How do we actually turn that into a component? Two ways you can do it. If you're a keyboard person, go right click, and here's the shortcut for create component, which is Option Command K for Mac users. It probably will show differently for Windows users. If you're to do it really quickly, could also go to the top bar, and it's the element in the center. After clicking that, you've just made your first component, and you can rename it like radio circle or something of the like. So yeah, there, you've just made your first component. And next step is to continue building our components. How you turn one component, how you combine all these components is we look at what one list item is made of, and that's the text, the circle, and the background. So if we go back to our file, we need to also make a component for the text inside the list. So if you click on the text tool and tap on canvas again, this will be your to-do item. And obviously that looks too big. So what we want to do is resize the text again, and also change the weight of it. And you go to this thing here and select preferably regular. You could do medium if you like, with whatever font you're choosing. And I would probably go with like 15 or 14 or 16. So yep, you've just made your text on your list. And next thing you want to do is actually make the list item itself. So to do that, it's preferred that you use a copy of the master component that you just made. You can do so by doing a duplicate of it like that. How do I just do that? You hold, if you're on Mac, it's you click on it, click on your master component, hold the Option key, then just drag the element right there. You may have, before this, you may have done just copy and paste, Control C and Control V. But when you're working with design tools, another option is duplicating it via Option key, and then you just drag it to your canvas like that. And next thing we're going to do is align the two pieces you've just made. And how I can do that is you can basically select both of them by dragging your map cursor across the screen on top of both of them. This thing you see here on the right side on the very top row is all your alignment options. Everything from align left and align to the horizontal to aligning vertically. And if you hover over them, they'll basically say what they are. and we're gonna align them, these two. How we're gonna align these is on their vertical centers. Okay, it appears they're aligned already, so I don't need to do anything. Next thing you're gonna do is make them two into a component as well. So how I can do that is through the component option at the top. Just create component, and there you have your next component. But obviously this isn't finished. Another thing you can do is change the spacing between the items via this option here. See where it says 22, you can change it to whatever you feel like looks right. Maybe I'll go with 16 for my one at the moment. I'll go with 16. And also we need to add a background and also add padding and borders to it. So how we're going to do that is we're going to use a new feature called auto layout. And let's click on it here. And if you click on it, you'll be able to see all the different spacing, padding options, as well as how you want to align those two things on your component. So I'm gonna pick the center align because I want both of these to be at the center of my component. So the spacing is 16, which we've already set, but I want to set the horizontal paddings to say about 12, and I'll set the vertical padding to 16 or probably 12. Probably, yeah. So as you can see, your frame has adjusted to the size of your padding. And next thing you want to do is make it visible by make your component visible by making the background white, and you can do that by going to the place where it says fill and unhiding it. So yeah, there we go. If we want to, we could also add a bit of styling, like rounded edges. Right now it looks a bit clunky because it's square, and normally in your user interfaces you probably see a lot of round UI components as opposed to square. This makes it easier to look at, and the option to do that is in this section here. This is the corner radius setting, and what you want to do is change that number to, like, let's say 10. And other style options you can do to add to your component is do a shadow, a drop shadow. The current one there, it's a bit dark. It's under the effects option. It's the default for it after you click the plus, and you can adjust the little settings here. But I speeds up a bit due to time. And change the blur to make it more spread out, make the shadow more spread out, and yeah. I'll rename my item to item. And I can do the same as well. Okay, next thing we're going to do is use our components to build content. Right now, as you see, we only have placeholder text, and that's not very useful in a real setting because we want you want to actually add your to-do list items. And how we're going to do that is, first of all, I will we'll do the duplicate thing again, and you just do that by holding Option about four times. If they're not aligned for you at the moment, don't worry about it. You can easily align them all by selecting all your components or your child components again and going to the alignment panel and selecting more options over here. Distribute vertical spacing, and this means all your components will be distributed with even spacing inside them, like so. And from there, you'll be able to. Actually, one thing we've got to do is to set a fixed width to the component to make sure that all this is the same size, and we can do that by selecting the master component again and dragging it to a fixed width of about 300. I'm going to say just 300, and also on the order layout, put it back to left alignment. So when you have all your components, and you can double tap on here to add text. So you can start adding like whatever you want on your to-do list, whether it be my cat or take a walk, or two, or up on 8 weeks of lectures. And fourth one, Mac can be meeting. In fact, there's actually a Mac committee meeting tonight. So just giving you a bit of inside scoop on what's happening at Mac. And you want to drag all your components onto the canvas. You can do so by clicking and dragging, and then making sure that the canvas is highlighted by blue before going onto it. Yeah, that's the bulk of with this workshop, learning to play around with components to make a to-do list. I'll just take pause for a moment to check the Q&A to check if there's any questions. Useful and free extensions Figma plugin. Yes, there's a few that I personally use that I find quite useful. I can go through the ones we use here. There's Iconify. Iconify is the place where the place for all your icons. So if you want to use an icon for any of your designs, the best place to go get them is Iconify, the plugin. So you don't have to like go on the internet and search and copy and paste from other sites. There's a Iconify plugin that's super useful. Another plugin I have is, okay, so there's, I'll write that down, it's Iconify, and there's also Unsplash. If you use Unsplash, the free stock photo place, there's also a plugin for that in Figma. We can just import photos from the plugin there. What is Figma uses related to coding? Figma is the prototyping software that designers use to design what interfaces look like before they go into coding. So like what you've made here can be turned into code just by click into one of these components and going to inspect. You can see a bit of few coding properties like top left radius, etc. And this is like super useful for coders if you want to figure out how each thing is styled. And you can't do that just by observing like design just like that. Is Figma being used a lot in the industry? Yes, I would say so. It's pretty popular because it's free and students love free shit. So definitely really popular among students and organizations where collaboration is the goal, because Figma is collaborative software, and with software like Adobe XD, there's collaboration is harder because not many people can be on the thing at the same time. It still kind of falls short of Sketch and InVision at the moment, I think, but it's still used pretty widely in the industry and is definitely a skill I would recommend if you had to choose a prototyping software to learn. Okay, I'll just move to answer questions. Feel free to unmute your mic and ask away any more questions, or just pop more sticky notes. I'll be monitoring these as well. So yeah, back to our atomic design methodology. Next thing we're going to do is build the rest of the page and try and do a bit of prototyping before time's up. How do you ensure everything doesn't change if you choose the option duplicate method? So the good thing here is that things don't change as long as you use master component. The great thing about using components is that if you change, say, a color, if you change a color on the master component, all the other child components change with it. Does that kind of answer your question, dear? Uh, yeah, so Kim, how do you import other fonts? Oh, awesome. How do you import other fonts? Can you, I'm pretty sure if you're using, oh yeah. Okay, if you're using, you can only use other fonts if you're on the Figma app from my memory. So how you import it is you do how you normally would download the font that you like and then install it via however your OS is. If you're on Mac, it's just adding the font to your font book. And then if you restart the Figma app, you'll see the font appear on your drop-down list here. I don't think there's option to use your own fonts on the desktop version of Figma. So yeah, ideally the app would be the best place to be importing custom fonts. Okay, I'm gonna try to speed through the adding states part because I realize we're a bit short on time. So when you check off a to-do list item, you want to change all these components because they're not going to look the same after you check them. And how you're going to do that is, first of all, you're going to have to change the little circle here to make the circle look like it's checked. And how we're going to do that is using a thing called a variant in the component. And you can find that by hovering over the properties and selecting that. And you choose variant. And what a variant is, it's the same version of the radio circle component, but it's just it just looks different because the state of the component is checked. And how I'm going to do mine is I'm going to add another circle inside this circle. So I'm going to do the same thing as before. Make sure I'm centering this. You can center things by doing the center line vertically and center line horizontally. So horizontally that didn't work because I think the circle is an odd number. So what we can do is you select the two things and you go on vertical center and horizontal center. And I want to fill that with a darker purple, probably that. And that's the state for a check to-do list item. But what I also want to do is change the state on here to make the text look different as well. And I can do the same thing by adding a property, a variant, and clicking the plus here to make another variant. And how I can, so the first one will be your unchecked item and the second one will be your checked item. And first one, you can just double click on the circle double click on the circle and change the property to the second variant here. and that's how easy it is to change between variants. And I also want to style this text by selecting a strike through so that it really looks like I've checked off my item. Also, as this changes from this to this state, I also definitely need to change the prototype to reflect that. And if you remember, the prototype tab is over here right next to design. I want to add an interaction to say that when I tap this, it will turn into the second one. And I just go to the blue circle here and drag it to the other component and check that the interaction details is saying everything I wanted to do. Change from property 1 to change from variant 1 to variant 2. I should probably name these as well. Fun fact, you can do boolean as well. You can do true, check is false, and this one should be true. And what do you have to, when you're choosing which one to use in your wireframe, it turns up like this as a toggle switch, so you can go from checked to unchecked. Okay, so in these like last 4 minutes, I'll just go through how it look like on prototype, because if you're up to this stage, you would have in the interactions already forgot to add that if you want this to turn into this, you also want this to also turn into this once you tap it. So just checking the interaction details that everything is as expected. And now I can actually play my prototype. And I do that by selecting the frame, which is the title here. And then I go to the present button. Also looks like a play button. That will officially launch your prototype. And here's where the cool stuff happens. Here's when you can tap to make the to-do list look like it's checked and then unchecked. So if I finish taking my cat for a walk, then I'll check this item off, and so on and so on. Okay, I didn't actually get time to do another interaction for what happens when you add an item. But this is kind of an example design of a to-do list that you can make and use if you want to develop this kind of prototype further. You can, by all means, if you know how to code, go ahead and code it up. It might make a interesting project. But ultimately, that is kind of it. So I had to cut it a bit short, and it looks a bit different from the initial one, but that's okay. If you want again, if you want the link to the initial prototype as well as the presentation slides that will be posted out after the workshop, and as well as I'll probably get Sai to send the link again to the notes as well via Zoom chat. Yep. So if you've made a design, please, I would love to see your lovely designs that you've made. So please feel free to post your design here. Leave that up for like 30 seconds. And also, is site, yep,
Yeah, I
the
sent
link
the
site is a link to the completed Figma prototype and the presentation slides that you can get a copy of if you click on get a copy here, and that duplicates it to your own Figma, and you can basically treat it as your own Figma file to kind of play around with and add more to it if you like. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
wrap
that
up.
concludes.
So yeah, Alice, you go.
Yeah, sure. So that concludes our first event of the semester, Intro to Figma Prototyping. Figma is a really large topic, so apologies we didn't get to some of the last part of the design I wanted to do. But thank you everyone for coming, and I hope you all learned something. If not, had a chance to learn about components and order layout, and yeah, hope you learned something new from the workshop they can apply to your projects.